All right. At the request of my community and some other new players that I've talked to recently, I'm going to go into my method for trying to get through the BR program as quickly as possible with as little requirement on winning games as possible. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So, in BR, you get the idea. You're presented with all the rounds and the rarities, right? So, in this particular BR, which is the one that's starting on July 11th this year, this particular one, and I always notate these down. So, like, either piece of paper, sticky notes, however you want to do it, just make it so you can keep track of it easier for yourself. What you want to do is you want to make a note of what positions the diamond, gold, and silver players in that program play, the ones that you need to do for the missions. And you're essentially trying to finesse the system into giving you the most opportunities possible to hit extra copies of those players. Because you get the guaranteed rounds, right? So you get a guaranteed 3 each time. But what I try to do is set it up so that you have the most opportunities possible to get more than those guaranteed rounds. Because if you can load a lineup up with them, you can blaze through it in a couple of rounds. So I'm going to do one here as an example. Hopefully it'll pan out and it'll make sense and be a good example. So for your first round here, the first round, if you do have someone like a high diamond that is like just absolutely spectacular, like a two-way player, like any of the MLB cards or Otani, any of the Otanis really, feel free to pick those here. Because if you double up on one position with this round, you can always take that in the guaranteed round to forcibly get one of the program players at that position. So you don't have to tank your entire draft this round necessarily. So for this one right here, center field, not safe because you can pull a center fielder in the low diamond round. Starting pitcher, I don't. 1, I will never draft Domingo. 2, no. Second base is not safe because there is silver and diamond second baseman in this BR. So, on top of Adley honestly being the best pick here, he also plays catcher, which is one of the 3 positions in this particular BR that is safe to pick to give yourself the most chance. Here, I'll then make my first few picks here. It'll make more sense here in a sec. To take Adley, if you really want to min-max it, you can try to intentionally leave the positions that have the most program players open to have the even more shots at it. I typically don't tend to do that because I like to have a mix of pitchers and hitters in my BR lineup so I can feel like I'm making some progress even if I am getting shelled or if I forget how to hit for some reason. So for here, I'm going to take Michael Harris because this is one of the ones where he's the only center fielder in the program. So if you take him here, you don't have to worry about any other center fielders in the program being unable to be drafted because you already have a center fielder. So Harris is an easy one there. For the gold round, this is kind of dealer's choice here. There is a silver first baseman as well. So I would say, but there's 2 golds. I would say either take one of the 2 golds or Paddock to have the pitcher in your rotation to get some decent XP with. But the only one I would leave is Olsen, just because you have gold and silver rounds that'll be able to hit first baseman. So that's 13 more rounds that you could theoretically hit him or the other one. Whereas for third baseman, there's only 3 rounds where you can hit a gold third baseman beyond this, and those might be pretty long odds still. So the safe bets are either at the start here, Paddock or Lowell or Andujar. I'm gonna take Lowell just because he has his quirks from his Was it Kaiju card? Yeah, I think it was a Kaiju. The one from set 2. Really good card, by the way. And on to the silver round. Now, silvers are kind of a crapshoot just because there's so many silver players in any particular round. So, silver is where I typically, at the start of this method, I'll take a pitcher just so I can get one of the pitchers knocked out. And I mean, pitchers, you can get PXP even if you're getting obliterated. And that's one of the things that I do really like about this method is that you don't have to be that good at the game to make progress with this method. Like, if you can like fumble your way into a home run every once in a while, or even if you give up like 3 or 4 runs, get through an inning with a pitcher, you can still make good progress in the program with this method. It doesn't rely on you to win or to put up a bunch of runs or to rip off 9 wins in a single run. Like, you don't have, obviously that stuff will help and it'll make it go quicker, but you don't have to be able to do that stuff to progress. This mode's not as hopeless as it looks at first glance. I'm gonna take Dekman here because honestly, good hit per 9, good K per 9, throws hard, he's a lefty. Those are things that you need in BR. So Dekman it is. Okay, now we get into the real rounds where you have to analyze like what position players are playing, what do you have left for rounds, etc., etc. So right here, as we stated earlier, catcher, left, right, those 3 positions have no program players. So you are safe to immediately fill those. And in fact, you should, at the earliest point possible, fill positions with no program players. And you may say, why would I do that? Like, why would I take Kutch here over like a decent lefty arm or Brandon Lowe? Brandon Lowe, Lowe, I don't remember which one he is. He wrecks people. So why would I take Kutch here? By taking Kutch here and then taking a left fielder in the next few rounds, hopefully. At that point, every card that comes up in your draft will be at a position that can theoretically, for silver and gold rounds at least, give you an additional program player for your lineup. Make sense? Here, well, I'll make this pick and then hopefully we'll see it in a few rounds. All right, perfect example here. So, Jock Peterson, other than being one of the OG gods of this year's game, plays left field. So at this point, I have first, second, shortstop open, right? Silver has first and second base. Gold has first base as well. Now, shortstop is also now a safe position because you're not going to get another diamond round. So you can fill that one if you want to. Actually, you probably should now. I'm used to the past programs where it was like every single rarity had one position in it. So fill that up. Same logic though. And at this point, you have first and second base open. So every single gold and silver round until you fill those positions will always present you with the chance to hit another program card. And the same goes for your pitchers too. Like, I took Dekman, right? So at this point, because Dekman is the only non-diamond DR program player card, you can basically fill your bullpen. Hey, sometimes the game likes to prove your methods right, like immediately. So, I will take that. So what just happened there? Because first and second base are the only positions that are open, when it's picking the cards to present for that silver round, the pool of potential players, which only at this point has, Marp and the second baseman that we need, instead of having all these positions, it's pulling from a position player pool only 2 positions wide. So the odds of you hitting Marp or the second baseman go up astronomically. So obviously you take Marp here. And at this point, this is where I would you ask yourself, how does the draft look so far? And how, like, do you feel like you are going to be able to win some games? If you feel like it's a really good draft so far, at this point, transition out of the method and start picking players you think give you the best opportunity to win. Now, if other than the extra player, you think the draft looks like garbage, you can keep on the method. Like I actually don't mind this draft right now. I'm doing this just to show the example of it. But you can keep on, like, just picking your bullpen and starting pitchers to keep those open to try and hit a 5th program card, which, if you can do it, like, I don't redraft looking for 5 program players in one run ever. It's not really cost effective. Like, it's a fun way to open packs 1,500 stubs at a time, but I don't really recommend that unless you have a hole burning in your pocket for it. That said, so yeah, like, don't hold your breath for a 5th player. For 99% of people, if you hit one extra player, take the W and transition out to a more normal drafting method. Because I actually need the lefty. Blanca's really good, but I'm going to take the lefty there just because he has really good hit per 9. I ain't got to draft starting pitching at some point, right? Might as well draft a decent one. Okay. So, unfortunately, gold, we didn't hit either of the, any of the pitching that we needed. So, a little bit unfortunate, but that's all right. Got a really good bullpen arm out of it still. Only have 1 gold round left. Take Samson, he throws harder. Now, see, this isn't applicable to this particular BR program because it's really light on pitchers for some reason. But if pretend that there was a gold closing pitcher left that we were still looking for, this is where you would have to ask yourself, okay, do I take a serviceable bullpen arm here and close off the opportunity to hit that final card that we could potentially use in the program? Or do I make a sub-par pick, both of these, Stott and Elfin in this case, do I make a suboptimal pick for the sake of keeping my program cards open because I have that 1 gold round left? This is where I can't tell you, like, what's the right call here. It really depends on how your draft looks, what your skill level's like, how far into the program you are, because every player you complete makes redrafting for the sake of extra cards a little bit less optimal. I am in need of variety here, so I'm going to take Chris Martin here, but honestly, that's mostly just because I need the righty. And in this program, there isn't a gold pitcher that's a bullpen pitcher, so that's actually safe. However, I'm gonna try and keep my final starting pitcher spot there open until my final gold round. There's not that many gold starting pitchers, so the idea of us hitting that Chris Paddock in that final gold round, while low, it's still enough of a chance that I'll kind of roll the dice on some other picks to keep that opportunity open. Hopefully it's not round 26. Typically when I decide to make a play like that, it's round 26. Also, always make sure you have a backup catcher unless your catcher can run. Oh. Homerism is a real thing, ain't it? It's a real thing. Also, at this point in the draft, make sure if you did draft any common or bad bronze position players that you're drafting your replacements for them. Like, I don't really want to start Tovar or Roberto Perez, so I'm gonna take Cal here, just because he can actually hit righties. Ooh, this is Yeah, even though he's down on IE. Also, don't be afraid of 1-star IEs. Like, I'm a hypocrite for telling you that. Go look at it. Like, it's -7 versus lefties. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't make Brandon any less of a very, very good silver right there. So, because like when it's a 5-star IE, make sure it's like actually giving a good boost, because sometimes you'll see a 5-star IE that's giving like +5. Now, see, +17 is pretty decent, and +15 to a guy who already destroys one side of the plate is a little bit of a different story. Plus, like I said, I'm trying to keep that final gold open. Well, sometimes the method doesn't pay out. That's all right. So sometimes you'll get like 2 pitchers right there too. So I was hoping, but that's all right, because we. He doesn't play there. Come on. Well, I guess we're gonna start Ezekiel, and I mean, I don't think you cannot take Gallo. So, all right, and then don't be afraid if you end up with a lack of lefties in your pen to take lefty starters and basically use them as an emergency bullpen arm. I'm actually okay on lefties, so. Sorry, I didn't recognize that card. Hey, throws hard. Why not? Throws hard, 70 hit per 9 on a bronze. You could do a lot worse. So that actually worked out. Like, it's not a god tier draft. I consider getting 5 in at the start of a program, 5 in your first draft or your first run. That's the goal, but I will settle for 4 unless it's a really bad draft. And honestly, this isn't a bad draft. And we got that extra Mike Lowell right here. So, you know, kind of works out here. But see, the nice part about that is that now you get to make progress on multiple fronts at the same time. Or sorry, I didn't get an extra Lowell. I got the extra Marp. So now, instead of just getting Beekman done in one run, you can potentially get Marp and Beekman done, and that's 8 stars of progress right there. And even if you don't get them done, you're making progress on multiple fronts at the same time, which means less games you will have to play overall, which means a less painful experience. Because as good as this is, and yeah, this card looks insane. It's not worth being that miserable over. And I think using my method here, you can cut a little bit of that misery out. Like, at the very least, it'll get you through it a bit quicker. Might cost you a little bit of subs on redrafting, because no lie, if we didn't hit that mark, I would redraft. My rule at the start is you redraft if you don't get a bonus player. Within reason. Like, if you whiff like 8 times in a row, and maybe you're just having a bad day. Who knows? That said, as you progress further on, that rule kind of goes out the window. Like, if you have all the players of one position done, then obviously that becomes a safe place to pick players again. Like, if once I finish Diekman and I take Evaldi from the diamond round, I can fill my bullpen like as a dumping ground for leaving other positions open. Once I get Carrasco and Paddock done, I can use starting pitching as a dumping ground to keep my position player spots open. So it's just, this method is basically rigging the probability of cards a little bit in your favor as much as you can, while also making as much progress as possible on them. And it's a lot about adjusting it on the fly. Like, obviously, there will be situations where it flies out the window because your first like 3 rounds are just like, you got 2-way player Ohtani, and you got like gold Gallo in your first round, and like silver Mondesi in the second round if they ever bring that card back, and you're like, okay, just chuck it all out the window. You're drafting for wins. But this method, it lets you make the most of a mid situation. So hopefully this helps you guys out, and hopefully you're able to get through and get Rube Foster or Bo if you're a sad Blue Jay fan. No disrespect. As quickly as possible. Thanks. Have a good one.